A growing number of polls suggest that former President Donald Trump's criminal charges are likely to hurt him with swing voters in this November's general election if he is convicted. But with Election Day nearing and his federal election case now removed from the court's calendar, it's unclear how many of the 4 cases against Trump will wrap up before voters head to the polls. With that said, let's take a look at what the 2024 Electoral College map looks like now, and how the race to 270 electoral votes would change if Trump is in fact convicted before Election Day. Before we do that though, if you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel down below and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. My name is Ryan Guest, founder and sole operator of Election Predictions Official. I hope you enjoy this video. Donald Trump is currently facing criminal charges in 4 cases, 2 federal cases, one brought for trying to overturn the 2020 election and another for retaining White House documents after leaving office, plus state cases in Georgia for his post-2020 election efforts and in New York for alleged hush money payments made during his 2016 campaign. That being said, as of right now, Trump faces no significant campaign restrictions, and his strength remains undiminished in polls among Republican voters as well as the broader electorate. As of recording this video, he leads Joe Biden by 2% in Real Clear Politics' head-to-head polling average. And according to Decision Desk HQ/The Hills average, based on 578 polls, his margin of lead over Biden is 2.6%. Furthermore, according to my own comprehensive forecast, taking into account polls, shifts, trends, demographics, prediction markets, and a ton of other data points, Trump is currently projected to win 293 electoral votes, flipping the key battlegrounds of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all of which he is leading in according to state-level averages per Decision Desk HQ. Long story short, Trump is clearly leading the presidential race right now. However, some of his ongoing cases could reach verdicts before November 5th, in which case that lead is expected to decline rapidly based on a consensus of recent polling data. Before we take a look at that data though, let's first clear up a few common questions. First of all, Trump would still be able to run his campaign from jail. The Constitution sets few eligibility requirements for presidents. They must be at least 35 years old, natural-born citizens, and have resided in the United States for at least 14 years. There are no limitations based on character or criminal record. While some states do not allow felons to run for state or local office, these restrictions do not apply to federal offices. And since both the Republican and Democratic parties have guaranteed spots on general election ballots in every state, there is no reason to think that Trump, who effectively runs the GOP right now, would not still be the Republican option for voters on Election Day, even if he is sitting behind bars. That being said, ironically, since Trump is registered to vote in Florida, he would not be eligible to vote for himself if convicted of a felony. Most felons in Florida regain voting rights after completing their full sentence, including parole or probation, and paying all fines and fees. But it is highly unlikely that Trump, if convicted, would have time to complete his sentence before Election Day. He could petition for clemency in Florida, which would require approval of the governor, Ron DeSantis, ironically enough, and 2 Florida cabinet members. I would not at all be surprised if the politically damaged DeSantis made a show out of doing this exact thing to restore some of his popularity among the Republican base. With all of that in mind, were Trump to defeat Joe Biden from jail in November, the Constitution does also not prohibit him from serving as president. I mean, it's not like the Founding Fathers ever thought we would be in this situation, so fair enough, right? In practice, though, the election of an incarcerated president would no doubt create a legal crisis unlike anything that we have ever seen. In theory, Trump could be stripped of his authority under the 25th Amendment, which provides a process to transfer authority to the vice president if the president is rendered unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. But that would require the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to declare Trump unable to fulfill his duties. Very unlikely given that those would probably be loyalists appointed by Trump himself. Trump could also try to pardon himself on the federal charges, or to commute his sentence, leaving his conviction in place but ending his imprisonment. Either action would undoubtedly go to the Supreme Court. Or one other option is that President Biden, on his way out of the door, could pardon Mr. Trump on the basis that the people have spoken, and so be it. Now, after all of that, the good news is that we are a long way from actually having to think about any of that. And even then, I certainly don't anticipate myself being in a position where my opinion on the subject matters. So instead, all I can do right now is try and forecast what kind of impact potential convictions on any of these charges will have on the all-important race to 270 electoral votes. Polling generally indicates that a criminal conviction would harm Trump's chances. According to a December Reuters/Ipsos poll, 31% of Republicans and 61% of independents claim that they would not vote for Trump if he were convicted. Likewise, in a Wall Street Journal poll from the same month, Trump led by 4 points with 47% to Biden's 43%, but when respondents were asked how they would vote if Trump were convicted in either of the federal cases, the results shifted to Biden 46 and Trump 45. Similarly, a Yahoo News YouGov poll from around the same time, which initially had Trump and Biden tied at 44 to 44%, showed Biden leading 46% to 39% if Trump were convicted. More recently, a YouGov poll from the end of January produced this very neat graphic, displaying Trump's diminishing support in a hypothetical scenario in which he is convicted of a serious crime. Specifically, this poll question asked respondents if Trump is convicted of a serious crime in the coming months, and he is the GOP nominee for president, who would you vote for? The standard results without a conviction found Trump leading Biden by a point at 45% to 44%. However, the hypothetical question yielded a 9-point Biden lead, with the sitting president rising to 49% compared to the former president's 40%. And then focusing in on just the key battlegrounds in this year's contests, a New York Times Siena College poll from last October suggests that a conviction may cost Trump the election. The survey showed Trump leading in 4 out of 6 key battlegrounds, up by 5 points in Arizona and Georgia, tied in Michigan, 11 points ahead in Nevada, 5 points ahead in Pennsylvania, and trailing by 2 points in Wisconsin. However, if Trump were convicted, Biden would lead in all of the battlegrounds. On average, Trump would transition from leading by 4 points across the 6 states to trailing the incumbent Democratic president, Biden, by more than 8.5 points. Alrighty, so that's what the polling says. Now here's my take. Don't read too deeply into hypothetical surveys like these. Historically, they do tend to overestimate shifts in opinion. And by now, we should know not to underestimate Trump in these opinion surveys. It's also fair to say that most voters are pretty much locked into their opinions about Trump and Biden, and those opinions may not change no matter what, despite people's answers to these hypothetical questions. After all, whenever I see discourse suggesting that Trump's support will weaken based on this or that, it rarely materializes. I mean, this is a guy who, since losing to Biden by 4.5 points in the national popular vote in 2020, was then impeached by the House of Representatives for inciting an insurrection and indicted in 4 separate criminal cases. Yet, as we saw earlier, he's now leading Biden by multiple points in polling averages. Now, that's not to say that the polling data based on a conviction does not tell us something, though. Biden would clearly benefit from Trump being convicted of a crime. There's no denying that. There are likely Trump voters out there who would probably change their mind, either to vote for Biden or just stay home. There may not be that many of them, but in an election expected to be decided by extremely narrow margins in just a few key states, even just a shift of modest magnitude could sway the outcome. And since you guys watch these videos to hear my opinion based on the data, or at least I would hope you do, otherwise I sound like an idiot, My preliminary projection is that if Trump is found guilty of numerous felonies, I say numerous because if he is convicted, it will almost certainly be on multiple felonies, not just one, then we can reasonably expect that the national environment will shift anywhere between 2 to 5 points in favor of Democrats from wherever it is before a potential conviction. I know that that is a pretty wide range, but anyone who says that they know exactly how much a Trump conviction would hurt him is just lying to your face. For the sake of discussion, though, let's settle on the midpoint of that range, approximately 3.5%. Then we can adjust this 2024 electoral map that you can check for yourself at electionpredictionsofficial.com. The forecast here is tied to every single data point available out there that we can use to project election outcomes. Trump is currently projected to win the election with 293 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 245. The projected national popular vote margin is Biden plus 1.9. Keep in mind that Republicans have only won the popular vote once in the last 8 presidential elections dating back to 1988. In fact, the 2024 election will officially mark 20 years since the Republican Party last won the popular vote. George Bush's victory in 2004 is the only time since 1988 where the GOP won more than 48% of votes nationally. Even so, Republican presidential candidates have managed to win 3 elections in that time span, and their Electoral College advantage is only expected to grow larger in 2024. Fundamentally, according to Cook Political Report's Partisan Voting Index, Trump could lose the popular vote by a narrow margin and still win an Electoral College majority. That, however, would almost be impossible for Biden to replicate. For a little more clarity, let's demonstrate this phenomenon by translating these projected margins over to this Electoral College map right here. For the sake of the argument, let's clear Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the 6 key battlegrounds in 2024. Trump sits at 235 electoral votes right now to Joe Biden's 226. Now, as per Cook's PVI scores, all 6 states exhibit a Republican partisan lean, with R+1 in Nevada and Michigan, R+2 in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, and R+3 in Georgia. These scores imply that if Trump were to secure 45% of the national popular vote, as currently projected, Cook's PVI suggests that he should expect approximately 48% of the vote in Georgia, 47% in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, and 46% in Nevada and Michigan, meaning that he would most likely win in Georgia, as well as Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And he would have a pretty good shot of winning Michigan and Nevada as well, though he wouldn't even need to as he's already at 291 electoral votes. Essentially, what this tells us is that Biden probably needs to win the popular vote by at least 3 points this November, but more realistically 4 points, to feel confident that it will translate to an Electoral College victory. Luckily for him, he would get that and more in this scenario, where his projected 1.9-point national popular vote win rises to 5.4% off the back of the approximate 3.5-point raise we can reasonably expect him to get via a Trump conviction. Remember, Biden won in 2020 by 4.5 points, so a 5.4% win in 2024 would represent a near full point improvement nationally. With that being said, I'm not just going to simply apply a uniform 0.9% shift towards Biden for every state's 2020 election results. Such an approach would be overly simplistic and fail to account for the unique trends of each state. Every single state possesses its own characteristics, and there are numerous factors contributing to why one state may lean one way, while another may lean differently in any given election cycle. Therefore, the projected relative trend displayed on your screen via the spreadsheet I have created right here considers how each state has trended since the 2012 and 2016 elections, independently of the national environment. It also incorporates a state's elasticity score, which measures its responsiveness to national trends. A highly elastic state is prone to significant shifts in national voter preferences, whereas inelastic states are less susceptible to such fluctuations. For instance, Iowa's elasticity score is 1.13, indicating that for every 1-point movement in the national political mood towards one party, the district is anticipated to shift by 1.13 points towards that party. So, in summary, these data points have been aggregated to generate the figures in this projected trend column, which essentially represents the expected shift of a state towards a party in 2024, independent of the national political landscape. I have then combined this figure with a 0.9% overall shift towards Democrats off the back of that Trump conviction, multiplied by the elasticity score. This adjustment ensures that states with higher elasticity would exhibit a more pronounced shift towards Biden in this scenario, while those with lower elasticity would experience a more modest change. And then finally, to incorporate recent results alongside other available data for projecting the 2024 election, I have added this projected shift to an average of the 2020 election results and the 2024 EPO forecasted margin in the states. All of this yields the adjusted result column, which provides the margins we will be utilizing to complete this electoral map. To save some of your time, though, I am not going to go through every single state's individual shift, just those that experience a rating change from the 2020 election results. So first, let's reset this map back to the 2020 election margins, with the darkest shade of red or blue representing solid states won by more than 12 points by either candidate. The state of Colorado, for example, went to Biden by 13.5 points in 2020. Likely states include those decided by a margin between 7 to 12 points. So Minnesota and New Hampshire, both Biden plus 7 states, will both go back into the second darkest shade of blue, as would Iowa and South Carolina for Trump. Lean states fill the 2 to 7% margin range, so Texas at Trump plus 6 and Florida at Trump plus 3 drop into that category for Republicans, while Nevada and Michigan, Biden plus 2 and Biden plus 3 in 2020, lean towards Democrats. And then finally, tilt states were decided by less than 2 points. Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin go back into the tilt Biden camp as a result, while North Carolina tilts towards Trump. So the margin ratings you see on your screen right here represent the 2020 election results. Now let's adjust these results based on a potential Trump conviction. Well, here's the thing. There's only actually one rating change. Maine's 2nd congressional district would shift from likely Republican to lean Republican. That's genuinely it. Some of the margins change, sure, but not by enough to move them from one category to another. After all, it is just a 0.9% shift towards Biden. Arizona and Georgia go from Biden plus 0.3 and Biden plus 0.2 to Biden plus 1.7 and Biden plus 1.1, but they would still be tilt blue states, just by a more comfortable margin, just as Minnesota and New Hampshire go from Biden plus 7.1 and Biden plus 7.4 to Biden plus 8.3 and Biden plus 9.5. Alaska notably drops from Trump plus 10.1 to Trump plus 8.6, but still a likely red state. Sorry if this is a little underwhelming, but I do think that it's reasonable to suggest that a Biden victory in 2024, if Trump is convicted of a felony, would simply look like a slightly more comfortable 2020 win for him, considering that without a Trump conviction, Biden has no better than 50-50 odds of winning, if not worse. I'm sure his campaign would actually take this electoral map 11 times out of 10. Let me know in the comments what you think of this map and the points made in this video. I appreciate all positive or negative comments. Shout out to my channel members on screen here. Thank you so much for your support. If you would like to become a member, go ahead and click the join button below this video to receive exclusive perks. Make sure also to subscribe to my channel down below, and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.